So they flare.
You don't get to take away our rights. You don't get to take our rights to get off of it. You don't get to do this to us.
I mean, people like that will make a difference in this country. These are veterans who have been dissed by this president, President Bone Spurs. They're losing their federal jobs. The VA healthcare is being gutted. The veteran suicide hotline is being destaffed. And potential Medicaid and food stamp cuts would disproportionately hurt veterans. What happened to the Republican Party? It was always about the vets and the Army and the United States, the armed forces. And now Trump calls them losers. Remember what he said about John McCain, who was a prisoner of...
No, he never called them losers. See, now you guys were on a roll, but the problem is you start off on a roll, but then you add a bunch of lies. He did not call them losers. Okay, so everybody can relax. You know what I mean? Chill out and just take it a step. Now, this is Sunny Hostin is really going to go off on this one. Whoopi Goldberg does have to come in and kind of, calm her down just a little bit. But this is an encore presentation a little bit. It's not that old, but it was about the reaction to the Doge slashing and shredding. Now, the thing that I will say about, well, I'll get to the rest of what I'll say in the video. But, the thing is, I'll say this to begin with. The girls... You could have a point, and you're about to make the point, and it could be valid, and then you take it too far with a lie. Like, it's just ridiculous. So this is Sunny Hostin's causing chaos on set. Whoopi Goldberg having to come in and snap on her and relax her. Sunny Hostin's, as usual. Sunny Hostin's is always ready to be the one to take it too far. She's always in a fighting mood. I get it. People want to be in a fighting mood, but pointed at the wrong direction, it doesn't work for the good of anybody. Let's go ahead and get into it.
War during Vietnam and how he didn't like him because he was captured. And this Republican Party backs this president against our veterans. I hate to make speeches, but my father, my uncles all fought in World War II so that we would not have a fascist in the White House. And this is what we're getting right now. And I can almost cry today for these people, these vets who are losing everything. Why don't the Democrats go out there and march and stop fighting with each other? I'm sick of it.
Well, I don't know, Joy, that they're fighting with each other. They're not fighting a unified fight. That is the problem.
The fact that Nancy is now out there criticizing Schumer, stop it already.
You know why she's criticizing him? Because he should have been fighting for that veteran. He should have been fighting for the people of America that are feeling the way that they are feeling. The Americans that I've spoken to, people that approach me almost every single day, say they don't feel like the party is fighting for them. This is not about...
well, that's what I'm saying. Go out and fight for them.
But it's not about... Well, he had the opportunity to fight for them. Chuck Schumer caved to the GOP and got nothing. This was actually... This was not actually... the choice. But Joy, the choice was not between a no vote on the partisan GOP spending bill and a possible shutdown. It was a choice between a no vote and forcing Republicans to explain why they walked away from that possibility of a bipartisan agreement. And the core disagreement was around a willingness to fight, even if that meant convincing the public that the harm from a shutdown was the fault of Trump and the Republicans, because they are going to...
Yeah, but see, the problem is, though, all of this, but when people say that you have to fight and do this and maybe there'll be a shutdown and everything else, it's funny because if it was the other way around, it would be like, oh, the Republicans caused the shutdown, right? So it's still bipartisan to these people. The thing is, I never was about Doge because I personally think that Elon Musk spent his hundreds of millions of dollars. By the way, I do not hate rich people. I always say this on my episodes, and for some reason people don't hear me when I say this. They think I do not hate the rich. I still believe you can be as rich as you want in America, but at the same time, Elon paid his money to get in good with Trump, to decentralize things, to centralize things for the PayPal mafia. This is what I've been talking about. Now, what you'll see, let's do the prediction together because we always have to see where the ball is going. So you don't hear much about Elon anymore. You don't see influencers, praising Elon. They're either staying away from his name or they're talking about other things or they're just kind of, saying maybe he needs to fall back a little bit, right? That's because the job has been done. Whatever needed to get slashed has gotten slashed and they're moving on. They're moving on. Watch. And I think too, as time goes, you know, you'll see that there'll be some reports about him that aren't too favorable, just so to get him off of people's minds. He's not even tweeting as much as he used to. I already know how this goes, you know, and these girls could have made a good point, but it's always so bipartisan with them. It just is. When you really want the best for America, the labels go away. They just do. Yes, they do. They do. You start to just look at things as a human being. Like, okay, what's really going on, right? By the way, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and the notification bell. Thank you to every eye that lands on these videos.
To do exactly what they are doing. They're taking money away from vets. They're going to take money from Social Security. They're going to take money. So let them hold the water for them. Let them hold the bag. Democrats in the House were prepared for that fight. Chuck Schumer caved.
They didn't have the votes in the House. Okay, so it would have been worse if he didn't concede. It would have been worse. And that's what was surprising about Pelosi saying that, because she knows from her experience as Speaker of the House that the negotiator told Chuck Schumer he did not have the votes. He could not get the votes. He shut it down. And one thing that changed my mind is yesterday I called him on the carpet and said, how are you leadership when you only get 9 Democrats to follow you? But then someone shared something that made me change a little of my perspective. They had exactly the number they needed to not shut down. So he gave cover to a ton of Democrats that probably in common sense terms knew their voters would backlash if they shut the government down. And honestly,
he gave coverage to the GOP to do whatever the heck they want to do.
Nobody's fooling themselves. It's a minority. They don't have the math. It's just basic math. There are facts there. It's not an opinion. They cannot avoid this. And if they bent the knee and pushed back just to show the public they were fighting, we would have ended up worse off. They would have gutted it even more.
They're going to do it anyway.
Legally so, though.
Can't.
So right now we're in the courts. We have more than 2,000 cases because...
Yeah, but she's right. They have the House. Like, what is she even crying about? Like, what are you, like, she's just talking to talk. That's so annoying. Like, she's trying to explain common sense to you. Like, why don't you just listen to her common sense? My goodness.
Because of Doge and Elon Musk. I believe in the court system. I believe in the judges. I believe the one stopgap will be that moment. But when you cave and say, well, they're not listening to the rules anyway, well, you're giving them a shutdown, which legally allows them to do exactly what they're doing right now.
And they're going to do it anyway.
Veterans would be harmed. They wouldn't get their VA benefits.
They're already being harmed. No one is fighting for the American people, and it's feckless and it's weak.
Shutting down the government is not fighting for the American people. It costs the economy billions of dollars.
This man has destroyed so much in 1 month. Give it a minute. I think that...
Give them more time to shut stuff down?
I think that the Democrats are going to pull themselves together now.
As we speak, the courts actually stated that...
It's fun to watch this in hindsight. Like, the Democrats never did get themselves together. First of all, they really don't have the numbers, right? So we could even say that. They don't have the numbers. You don't even hear from Democrats anymore. Where's Jasmine Crockett? Like, what's going on? Everything, the news is like ticker tape. Look how they were going off about this. This was less than a month ago. They were going off about this. Now nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about any of this stuff. And right, like, okay, that's life. That's how it goes. But it is a little concerning that we just keep getting move right along, tariffs, move right along, you know, Epstein files never got them, move right along, like, whoa.
Every day there's some atrocity going on. Every day I wake up, what did he do today?
The courts just ruled that more than 20,000 federal workers have to be reinstated because what Doge did was not lawful.
So, listen, be careful, because this is what they want. They want this fighting. They want this infighting. What's happening now, Democrats don't have what they need to get what they want done. So again, people have to get out and you have to march. You have to start making noise.
That's right.
This is now coming back to us. The only way people are going to hear how angry you are is if you get out there. We've done it when people were being sent over to Vietnam disproportionately. We got out there and we made noise and we made a difference. We made a difference. We made a difference when it came to women's rights. We made a difference when it came to black people's rights. If we don't get up and get out there and start making the noise we have to make, it's not going to change.
Stand up
so
for the veterans.
I appreciate,
wish Joy would stop saying stand up for veterans. If y'all stood up for veterans, you would call out what's going on in Palestine right now. And the fact that Israel is talking about, attacking Iran when there's supposed to be a so-called diplomatic discussion with Iran, but Israel is saying we really don't care. We're going to do whatever we want. But you guys wear these bow ties and stuff, So please, okay, that will... If something like that was to happen, we would get pulled into another war again, another Gulf War, another, Iraq war, just with Iran, and more American soldiers would be dying, okay? So miss me with the we care about veterans. Nobody has the balls to call anything out, and I know somebody's going to say they give them a script, so don't get worked up because they give them a script. I know.
I love Chuck Schumer. I love all these people who dedicate themselves, but it is now on us. We have to do it. You want to save your Social Security? You got to get up and you got to start screaming. Because the only way they're going to understand that you're not going to put up with it is if you don't put up with it. That's the way it's going to work. And just like they do me, you notice there's no music? It's because they're putting up with me right now. But we will be right back.
So, that was cute the way she ended it, though. But look, at the end of the day, what we need to know is this. You do have to fight back and call things out. Like, I really wish people would be more honest about a lot of stuff that's going on. And I noticed that when I talk about certain things a certain way, I get certain comments, but it's okay. So I'm not going to stop talking. And I'm very grateful to everybody who's watching, even the people who don't like what they hear. Because the fact is, the truth is inconvenient. And that's what people should be more beholden to, is the truth. Before anything else, before bipartisan labels, be beholden to the truth. Because now, look, I told you, again, I will repeat it. Like, even when I cover Andrew Schultz, they're kind of like, oh, well, Elon doesn't need to get political. He needs to, now all of a sudden there's some sort of negative vibe with Elon. People are moving on from Elon, and it's the talking points. It's been sent out over the, the airwaves, however they do it. Like, all right, now we're against Elon. MAGA's very quiet about Elon. I was calling Elon out a while ago, but now you don't hear much about him. Because they've moved on. They've done what they needed to do. And you hear with Doge now, it was supposed to be like $1 trillion type of slashing to save $1 trillion. Now they're saying it's going to be more in the millions. Okay. Right? By the way, another thing people have finally been saying is, if people were stealing, if there were corrupt people stealing from the government, how come there haven't been any names of like, oh, we found the head of so-and-so doing this. And then another person will comment and say, well, because, it takes time to bring up charges. It's not about bring up charges. You could write a news article on anybody. They do it all the time. I mean, come on. They wrote articles about Trump all day about crimes so-called that he committed, that he did not commit, right? So why am I not hearing about these people who were stealing from the government? Anyway, I'll leave it there. I'll see you guys at the next one. Bye.